Evening, grand
Now,
evening, everyone. Like, yeah, I can whatever. Grand evening, everyone. Taralyn, Michelle, and Billy Wroe live. Oh man, yeah.
and we live.
Welcome
Yes,
to
as always.
another Tuesday. It's gonna be good. This is gonna be a good one tonight. Billy, what's up with you? How you doing?
Oh, it's every day is a fight. I feel like 5 heartbeats. Every night I got to fight to prove my love.
There you
That's
go.
how I feel today. How are you today?
I am doing phenomenal, and tonight should be very interesting because we are going to be dealing with the topic of insatiable appetites. And when we speaking of insatiable appetites tonight, we're talking in terms of relationships. Now, as you guys know, you tune in and watch. Billy and I always have differing perspectives, even though lately we've been agreeing on some things. But don't get it twisted; it's not always that way. A lot of the times, it's
True.
not that way. But tonight, insatiable appetites for me, it all boils down to that something when it comes to relationships or your idealism of someone that you just must have, and there isn't much wiggle room with that. Now, a lot of folks may say that, yeah, there is some wiggle room, but listen, we live in a day and age where there are a lot of people with checklists. I think the men's are sometimes shorter than women's, but typically people have their checklist of what it is that they want with relationships. And I thought that this would be an interesting topic for tonight. But before I go any further, Billy, what comes to mind with you when you think about insatiable appetites? Can't hear you. You muted.
There we
There
go.
you go.
Look, see, when you're live. When I think about insatiable appetites, I actually think about sometimes unrealistic expectations, where we want people to fit into a prefabricated box. And I'm not saying not having standards, but a prefabricated box that we want individuals to fit into. And it's
Mhm.
just not it's not realistic. And you could meet somebody who can check a lot of those things off the box, but because they're missing two or three things, you're like, oh, well, they got to have this, or they got to be this tall, or they got to be this strong, or this fit, or this rich, or whatever it may be. And so that's what I think about. Is I think about sometimes the unrealistic nature of the expectations that appetite creates when we're just, oh, we just got to have all five of these things. If they have all five of these things, everything else I can work with. Well, if they have like 4.5, you might want to take that 4.5 because that might be as close as you get. So that's what I typically go when I think about this insatiable appetite. I think about some other areas, and we'll kind of get into that later tonight. But that's the main space that my mind goes to with insatiable appetites.
I know another thing that I thought about too, when I thought about the topic, the title for this show, is I thought about some instances where people may have their idea of who they feel like is a good match for them. Maybe they're perfect fit. Are there instances where you feel as though sometimes what people are looking for is to fill a void within them as opposed to someone being a compliment to who they are? And what made me ask that question is because it was about a week ago, excuse me, I was having a conversation with some ladies, and there was a sister that was talking about what her income requirement would be for the person that she's dating. I don't think
Mhm.
there's anything wrong with that. I think that if you're at a certain space in your life, it's nothing wrong with having somebody that can match you or better. I just think that it's good to have somebody on an even playing field when it comes to that. But the situation with this sister was that she wasn't living within the range of what she wanted as a requirement. And so when you talked about unrealistic expectations, is it necessarily unrealistic to expect someone to be in a certain income bracket or space in their life that you're not in, number one? And number two, could that be and I don't know what the answer to this would be. I'm just asking. Could that be one of those things where maybe this person wants a lifestyle that she doesn't feel like she can obtain for herself? And it not just a she, I'm saying she because this is a conversation that I had, but would this necessarily be a thing that would be relative to men as well? What do you think?
So much there. So from the perspective, I've always said, careful about the list that you create, because the same list that you can create can be the same list that excludes you from the qualifications. And so when I think about the man or woman who has this checklist and they're like, income, since that's what you mentioned, they have to be at this income level. What I immediately think about is sometimes we're not immediately at the income level that maybe might be somebody's, hey, this is the threshold, you got to at least make this. I'll use myself as an example. Before I had gotten married, I remember being on welfare, not having a whole lot of money, but I had something that I believe I refer to it as actionable potential, not just the potential to be a person or a potential to do things, but an actionable potential that was almost tangible. Like, these things are going to come to pass. They just haven't come to pass yet. And so somebody ripping and roaring out there. But I think about that because had somebody met me at that stage in my life and not been able to see that I had this actionable potential, they could say, oh, well, he doesn't meet the income requirement. But today, I think I would meet a decent income requirement if somebody had an income requirement. But here's the challenge with that is, with the income requirement that I now meet, if I knew you back then and you weren't interested, and now all of a sudden, because I meet that income requirement, yeah, I'm not interested. My brother would always say when we would do music, when we were younger, we'd do music, and it'd be like, hey, if you didn't know me before I blew up, don't try to know me after I blew up. Just stay where you were at when I was just regular Billy. Stay where you were at when I was just regular Joe Schmo. Don't try to come over here now because you see that my time or my harvest is now being reaped. It's almost like I was in the field, I was sowing the seeds, I was doing what I needed to do to have a harvest, and now that it's harvest time, everybody want to show up with a basket. No. I'll let this fruit go bad before I give it to you.
So, but what's the? Because I love that you said that, because then what is the balance? And for those of you who are just joining us, we're talking about insatiable appetites in regard to relationships. What is the balance there? Because you talked about what was it you said? Actionable
potential.
Yeah, actionable potential. But then there's the conversation that has been floating around a lot about you probably fallen into a booby trap, dating potential. So what would some, I know you've heard it. I know you've heard it. So then what's the balance with that? How would someone, and I'm asking you because since you're a guy, you can speak to the ladies out there. How can you tell actionable potential from somebody who just has potential that's not actionable? It's not going anywhere. How would somebody be able to tell?
So I liken it to a person who says, I'm a rapper at 20. And at 25, they say I'm a rapper. And at 30, they say I'm a rapper. And at 35, 40, 45, 50, they say they're a rapper. You can always tell the tree, what they say, you can tell the tree by the fruit that it bears. And so the way you can tell that potential is actionable is if actions are being taken. Because I can be a rapper, but if I'm not writing anything, if I'm not going to the studio and actually not just going to the studio and recording something, because I used to do that when I was younger. I would make tons. I've probably got like 50 songs out there with me on it somewhere in the world. But I never took it to the next step. It's almost like, recently releasing the book, Fire Your Job, Hire Your Passion. I could say, oh yeah, I'm a writer, and maybe display some of the actions. Oh, he wrote this and he wrote that, he wrote this. But then all of a sudden you're at some point, well, he's not even looking into how to publish these things. He's not looking how to take that to the next level. And actionable potential is just that. You will see if somebody says, my wife was shocked because I was like, look, my goal for retirement is to purchase real estate. And so that means I need to have a certain number of rentals so that my income, I have cash flow, and then I can do whatever I want to do, whether I make money doing it or not. Um, and then all of a sudden it was like, okay, cool, we got a house. Okay, we got a rental. Okay, we turned her house into a rental. And she's just like, babe, we did that in like 2 years. Yeah, because that's actionable potential. Now, when she met me, I didn't, well, when she met me, I technically owned a house, but I didn't live in the house that I owned. And then I sold the house. So it's easy to say, well, how do you have this plan to build wealth through real estate, but you're selling your house? And I could have easily stayed in that position where having a lump sum of money, but then just sitting and not purchasing another house. And I chose not to stay in that. And that's what that actionable potential is actions that need to take place begin to manifest and begin to show up. And if those actions are not showing up, there's two things you can do. One, you could say, okay, am I not nurturing the seed for the action to manifest? That's number one. Or number two, you can accept that person is not even interested in planting the seed and the seed is not genuinely there. You can water the ground forever. If there's no seed in it, nothing's going to grow. You're just going to have mud. Mm-hmm. So that's how I measure it is I look, it doesn't have to be the end result, but there has to be small steps being taken in order to move towards the greater goal. That's how you measure that actionable potential.
And I think that's important too, because there are a lot of folks who will date or attach themselves to potential. And just because the person has potential doesn't mean that that's going to actually become anything other than the potential that they have. And also too, I think that the misconception that support or pushing or guiding from the significant other as opposed to the person with the potential, like you said, taking those steps on their own. You can only support what they're actually doing. I don't think that it should be a situation where you're pulling or pushing somebody toward what you see as their potential. That should be something that they choose and make those moves on their own. So yeah, that's a good point. A really good point.
Right. So now we've spoken a little bit about the male perspective, the female perspective, and I kind of want to stay in that that dating potential vein. But how do women, especially if they're women who have these checklists, how do they maneuver through that? Is it a hard? I mean, because I have met women who have been like, it's a hard. You got to meet this. If you don't meet this, then you're off. But then I've met some people who are flexible. So how does that balance work out from the female perspective?
That's a difficult question to answer for a couple reasons. Number one, I've never been one that's had an extensive list myself. I'm pretty basic, more so about the core of the person. So that narrows the list right there. I don't have a specific type, like he got to be 6'9", he got to be caramel colored, he got to be, I've never had that type of thing. But I think that from the women that I know and some of the different conversations that I've had, how they navigate the list has a lot to do with past experiences and whether or not they're completely healed from pain before they go out and start trying to seek another relationship. Women who have a little bit of baggage that they haven't healed from, those are the ones that are really, really tight to certain things on a list that really have nothing to do with the character or morality of a person. They're more superficial. And I can't speak for every woman watching. This has just been in my experience, but those who are still holding on to some things tend to be much more strict with their list than other women who have actually healed. They have their preferences, but at the end of the day, they do have the ability to say, if you have 6 things, if he's hitting half of them, and the core of who he is, talking about morality, type of character he has, if those things are good, then the other things are flexible. Because I think another thing to keep in mind too is, just like women have their list or their expectations, so do men. A lot of women, they have just their side of it that they see, but they don't understand that men have their ideal woman in mind too. Men have dreams, men have goals, men have things that matter to them the same way that they do to women. So I think a woman who's healed and who's genuinely looking for someone, a partner for long term, be it that marriage, or some people are not necessarily into that, but when they're looking for the long haul, they definitely take into account not only what they want, but they're curious and interested in learning what it is that he wants too, and how she fits into what it is that he wants. Can she fill that position for him? Are there some things that, oh, another thing a girlfriend mentioned to me that I thought was super cool, that also I agree with, is she mentioned getting to know what his love language is. When she was younger, she said that she saw that as being one general thing. For example, when she was coming up, she was taught that cooking and keeping the house, and that was a love language pretty much for all men, only for her to start to get out on her own and find out that different men value different things. And so now that's something that she considers a lot of fun, finding out what's an expression of love for him and what's a love language for him. But I think that in order to have the openness to have those types of conversations, to see another side of it, his side of it, and be willing to compromise, there has to be a space of healing from anything in the past, moving forward. So yeah, I think that it just all depends on where she is with that, how deep the list would end up being to her.
No, I can definitely see that. I think, man, with the concept of these, what do I want to? What's the word I want to use? I guess prefabricated thoughts of what's valuable.
Yeah,
Like,
that part.
especially when somebody is like, "Oh, I can cook," and I'm like, "Oh, I can too."
Exactly.
Like, so what are we? So what are we talking about? We go
What are
cook
we doing?
together? Like that's what I'm going. It's like I think that some of the thoughts of what is necessary for both a man and a woman are outdated. Um,
Absolutely.
and we kind of roll around and think about it. This is outdated within like literally almost a generation. In one
Mhm.
generation, it's outdated, and things are moving faster. Things are accelerating. So when we try to create these lists, I always liken it to why I never got a tattoo. And if you have tattoos, great. I love you. You have your tattoos. But there's a reason why I never got a tattoo. Hey, Bruni, what's up? Um, it's because at the time in which I would have got a tattoo, I'm a video gamer. I'm a gamer. I would have gotten a tattoo of Mario Brothers, let's say, back when the Nintendo was out. And then the Sega Genesis came out. Now I got to
Yep.
scratch out that tattoo and get Sonic the
Sonic.
Hedgehog. Right. and, and then the Nintendo 64 comes out, and I got to scratch that out and get Mario Kart. Like, because things are changing at such a accelerated pace, when we try to create these antiquated lists, they become outdated really, really fast.
Hmm.
I mean, granted, don't get me wrong. I think that even if your list is outdated, you can still probably find something that meets those standards in that list. But I'd much rather meet a person, personally at least, I'd much rather meet a person and find out what they have to offer. And
Absolutely.
not just what they have to offer me, but what I have to offer them. How am I going to add value to their life? What artist is that? Is that Lettucey,
Hmm.
where she says, how you gonna add to me? How you
Hmm.
gonna add to me? Like, that's where I'm at in my life now. It's like, if I have any relationship, it doesn't even have to be a romantic relationship.
Hmm.
There has to be something that relationship adds to me and that I add to it. Other
100%.
than that, what are we doing? We could just walk past each other and say, "What's up?" and keep it moving.
Hmm.
So what are your thoughts about that, about the outdated list that some people are running around with, where, oh, I could cook.
I, I think
Congratulations.
I think you end up painting yourself into a corner, putting yourself into a box, because I didn't even know that you thought about relationships that way, but that's exactly the way that I think about them. I just like to organically meet somebody and just see where they're at, see what makes them tick. See, I think it's so much fun to just have these open-ended conversations and just vibe somebody's energy and see how they would fit and you would fit into whatever's going on. Because there might be some things, if you have a list, then you're not even open to some things that this individual might bring to the table that you never thought of. How could you really see value in things outside of the list if you're so focused on what they say or do that matches with the list? That's just me. You know,
Right.
I guess that's the reason why I never had a type. I guess that's the because they come in all shapes and sizes. They come,
Right.
it's so many.
Figuratively and literally.
Yeah, there's so many different layers to people, and then I just imagine with me. I mean, there are so many different things to me. I could just imagine somebody trying to think of me within a box. Dude, you
Mm.
miss like so much, so that's the thing. I think it's beautiful when you're able to connect to people and just be open to receiving them exactly as you see them, exactly as you experience them, and then going from there. So I just, yeah, I never, to each their own, to each their own. And then I kind of get it, because like if you had a situation where you've had a relationship that was substantial,
Mhm.
talking in terms of time, how long you were with somebody, and that thing didn't work out. And then you're able to reflect. Hindsight is always 2020, and you say, "Oh, okay, man, this that was missing. This. So next time, if I go into a situation, these things are valuable to me." Well, the only problem with that is, and with some things, I'm not going to say with everything. The only problem with that, to me, is that what necessarily would have been valuable in one relationship doesn't mean, because you're dealing with a different individual, that that's going to be a good fit for the next relationship, because that's a completely and totally different person. That's a completely and totally different circumstance. And I'm not talking about in terms of morality. I'm not talking, a lot of people talk about money. I'm not talking about in terms of finances. Those things can be pretty static. Well, if we go to your example that you had earlier, not necessarily, because where somebody is right now doesn't mean that that's necessarily where they're going to be 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. So even still, that could be a little bit relative. But I think that, you know, at the end of the day, I think that you have experiences, focus on taking the lessons, make sure that you're healed, and go into the next situation. If you can't go into a situation completely and totally open to receive the person and it for what it is, then maybe that's not the time to be trying to connect with somebody anyway. You know.
I agree. Let's bring in Bernie. Just actually said something to that effect. Funny, you say that my type, or quote unquote type, obviously doesn't work. LOL. Need to be open to different things.
Oh yeah.
That openness. I agree with you that sometimes you kind of cut off the opportunity to get different things because you're so, oh well, I want to see this and I want to see that. Like I tell people all the time, the human body in and of itself, like let's not even go to the financials and all the other different things. Just the
Mhm.
physique of the human body can change from like the lowest end of the spectrum to the highest end of the spectrum and fall anywhere in between that in
Mhm.
any given period of time. You can literally be the most ripped person and stop working out and become the most non-ripped person. You can be the most non-ripped person and start working out and become the most ripped person. Like all these things fluctuate, have such a high degree for fluctuation that what I think, if there's anything that I'm going to create a list about, it's my non-negotiables.
There you
It's
go.
character, it's loyalty, it's communication, it's compromise, it's fighting fair. Like these are the things that are important to me.
Mhm.
And even with my wife right now, it's like, okay, there's times where we struggle with who I am as a person and I struggle with who she is as a person. And it's like,
Mhm.
hey, look, at the end of the day, I'm going to continue to bring me to this relationship because
Mhm.
that's all I know how to be is me. And that doesn't mean that I don't change. That doesn't mean that I don't compromise. That doesn't mean that she doesn't compromise, but it means that every day in our relationship, I am showing up as me, not as who I think she wants me to be. And I'm not coming with an expectation of her fitting into this box that I want her to fit in either. It's
Mhm.
really a relationship of acceptance, and it's challenging to be in a relationship of acceptance. I think that's maybe where we get these lists from, these appetites from, are from, man, I just want it to be easy when I'm in a relationship. Yeah, I hate to tell you, Big Mama didn't tell you that relationship was really hard. She didn't tell you that, and she made it look easy. And so now you think if you have your list, you're gonna have Big Mama's relationship. But Big Mama went through some stuff, and she just didn't share that, or maybe she wasn't vocal about that. Big
Yeah.
Daddy went through some stuff, and he didn't share that, and he wasn't vocal about that.
Yeah.
But the thing is I'd rather be in a relationship of acceptance that allows me to show up as me and then work through the turbulence that creates, than to try to be some carbon copy of a relationship that really wasn't what it was at the surface.
Yeah, because it's really easy to look at somebody's stuff from the outside and think that it's one thing without knowing all of the intricacies, the behind the scenes stuff. For everybody tuning in, Insatiable Appetites is what we're talking about. And feel free to follow the link to join us up on stage here live to become a part of the conversation if you be so bold.
Right. We
Come
only
on.
get like one every 2-3 weeks because folks be out here smart.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I think that that's a lot of when you see the different brokenness within the relationships. I think that a lot of it is because people are trying to recreate idealisms instead of just allowing themselves to build something organic with who it is that they're with, instead of being restricted and put in that box. Hey Jennifer, how you doing? Jan, um JC. It's one of those types of things where it's I just I just think it's so very difficult when you're trying to recreate something that, like you said, it's not really what you thought it was, and then you could be missing out on something that you could have that's different than anything that you ever thought possible if you
Mhm.
just allow yourself to just go for the ride and accept things for what they are.
Right. Absolutely.
Traditional
Well,
secrets have allowed for us to.
well, you gotta tell people what you're
Oh,
reading. You can't
right. JC I'm like, huh? I saw that. I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on? Traditional secrets from Jennifer Chambers, JC. Traditional secrets have allowed for us to romanticize relationships. That part, right?
Mm,
That whole romanticize and everything. And I think that why sit and romanticize the idea? I'm a firm believer in whatever it is that you want within your relationship. If you have a willing partner, you can create it. It doesn't
absolutely.
have to look like anything else that you've seen before, like being entrepreneurs, right? I
Mhm.
think one of the most difficult things for me when I decided to start my business and I started getting out on my own was when you're in corporate America for a long time, you don't realize how much you're conditioned to think and be within a box because you're a fixture in someone else's vision and you play your role in whatever your department is in helping them to bring their ultimate big picture into fruition. So
Right.
I don't care what department you're in or how much you learn, you're still only a piece of a bigger picture that you probably never will see, depending on what level you are in that company. And then transitioning out of that into being an entrepreneur and having my own business, it took me a while to get used to the fact that, hey, there is no box. And if we're all individuals, which we are, and we all bring something unique to the table, then there are going to be some aspects of my business that I've never seen before. And that's when you know you're doing it right. There are some things
Right.
that are just basic where you don't have to reinvent the wheel. But then there are some other things where, yeah, you need to construct your own doggone wheels because this thing that you have, your company is unique to you. And so I liken that to relationships. There are some foundational things that are going to be there and that are going to be present. But then again, too, your relationship should be unique and not look like anything else that you've ever seen in lots of different ways, because that's what makes the thing that you have with your partner special. But
Mm,
I think people running around trying to make it look like this person, look like, well, we supposed to have this, and that. Well, how do you know that? Have you really even taken the time to see if what it is that you value is something that's of value to the person that you're with? And if it is of value, well, they may have a tier for values. Let's say 1 through 5. Maybe what you valued is a 2 on your list. They value that too, but that's 5 for them. Different
right.
things like that. So I think embracing the uniqueness, not just within our lives and what we do, but specifically in our relationships, can allow us to really enjoy what it is that we have, and not romanticize, as JC says, some of
Mm,
what we've seen and heard.
right. And when you talk about, I call it keeping up with the Joneses. When you talk about
Yeah.
keeping up with the Joneses in your relationship, really, it overall devalues your relationship,
Yeah.
because if you can get your relationship anywhere, then what's the purpose of your relationship?
Mm.
The JC is a really good example of this. The relationship that JC and I have, though I have numerous relationships with people on a very personal level, our relationship is very unique to us.
Mm.
Very, very unique. Even though JC will tell you, and I'm not sharing anything that I think she would be concerned with me sharing, but she would tell you that when you and I have conversations on our show, that it feels very much like the conversations that JC and I have when
I
we're
get
having
that.
our conversations. So
Yeah.
that aspect, it may be similar, but our relationship is different. I'm not trying to have the relationship that I have with Taralyn with JC, and I'm
Mm.
not trying to have the relationship that I have with JC with Taralyn. I'm
Mhm.
just having individual relationships, and going back to my marriage, where we we're not trying to be anybody that we're not. Like,
Mhm.
we have arguments, we have disagreements, we have conflict over what we're going to eat for dinner tonight. Like, that's just the nature of our relationship. But if somebody was to ask me, do I have a healthy relationship? My answer would be yes, I have a healthy relationship, because the health of a relationship, in my opinion, is not determined by adversity or turbulence.
Yeah.
It's determined by being able to be open and vulnerable with one another. And so having that in a relationship is what makes the relationship healthy. When you can't be open, when you can't be vulnerable, when it feels like there's always this tension in the room, and if I say the wrong thing, it's going to explode, that's not a healthy relationship. And
Yeah.
so it's about really trying to figure out how to get yourself into a space where your relationship allows you to be vulnerable, and more importantly, your relationship allows you to be wrong. That's really hard to accept. Like, especially like being on YouTube every week, and you're like giving advice and you're still getting things wrong in your life. It's really hard to be in a relationship where it's like, oh well, wow, she was right. Oh wow, she was right and I was wrong in this situation. And it's not about right or wrong so much, but it's just like the humility that comes with, oh shoot, I had the wrong answer and I thought I had the right answer. I need to
Mhm.
reevaluate. And so I'm with you on that. Keeping up with the Joneses in your relationship, it just creates this fraudulent relationship. So my question to you would be this: how do we make our relationships innovative?
Hmm. That is a good question. I think the best thing to do is allow yourselves to be challenged by the other one. Welcome things that make you feel uncomfortable, where you have to completely and totally trust your partner. Now, that's something that in the past I struggle with, because if it doesn't look like it, listen, because I'm like type A all day. You know what I'm saying? Things got to look a certain way, and I have like a process for when I'm putting things together. And so in the past, that has been something that's challenging for me, to completely and totally trust in someone else's vision. I don't have a hand in it. I'm just saying, okay, yeah, you want to do that, let's go for it. I think that having that openness, and with assuming that you're with somebody where you chose to partner with that person because you have a level of respect, trust, you feel like they're responsible, da 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 da. So we're going to assume that what I'm saying, those things are there. But I think in order for your relationship to be innovative, for it to be something that's rewarding, because I feel like with the ultimate challenges, you get the ultimate rewards. There's always risk there, but being willing to take those risks, not just individually, but collectively, and allowing yourself to experience what your partner has to offer, letting that play itself out, and then you two being able to learn from whatever that endeavor was. I think that that's something that's healthy. Like I said, I've struggled with that. But I think that that's something that's healthy, because I mean, hindsight being 2020, fast forwarding where I am now, that's actually something that would be fun. That would be challenging. I mean, I want to see my baby shine. I want to be like, you killed that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That was pretty dope. And I didn't even think of that. I didn't even think to go that route. And then let's just say, worst case scenario, if you have that trust, your person goes out, they go about what it is that they're doing, and it doesn't work out as planned, then even still, there's still something to learn from it. And then now you get to be a participant. And if they want to choose to go about it again, rebuilding the effort or going about the effort again. So, I think that that's one of those things, really allowing ourselves to allow ourselves to have that support that person in their vision and things, and working together to build what that would look like. That's the first thing that comes to mind for me.
Before I respond, I want to bring in Lavon's comment. She said, completely trust your partner. Ooh, she got the grumbly face on it.
I know.
Then she says, trusting is very scary.
It
and
is.
then relinquishing all control. See, why you running? Don't run. Don't run.
But I think it's so important, because when you think about partnership, especially marriage, if you're with someone that you don't feel like you can do that with, then why are you with them? That's the thing. And I think that, like I was saying before, worst case scenario, if it didn't work out, then it's something that both of you can work together on. So I don't want to be married to somebody where I feel like I don't have that level of trust, because then when we have these conversations, if you have that level of trust when everything is good, we're talking health and things like that, then what if life hits and now one of you don't have the health that you had before? And if you can't trust that person when everything is good, then you're going to trust them if something happens, and God forbid, now you're literally dependent upon them. So I think these are things that we have to think about. I want to be with somebody where I feel like, you know what, relinquishing control and trust is going to be a risk, but I'm okay. I'm okay with that. Let's give it a shot. So that's just me.
No, I agree with you. But I will take it even a step further. And Bruni just mentioned this in the comments. Matter of fact, I'll read her comment before I say this. She says, complete trust is a challenge, but that's a sign that I need to work on me a little more. And
Absolutely.
that's exactly what my thought process is. It's really difficult to trust somebody when you don't trust yourself.
Absolutely.
It is difficult because you are unsure of your own judgment. And
Absolutely.
so it's like, am I making that mistake again? I think it's Brene Brown who talks about the head, heart, gut. Like, what does your head say about it? What does your heart say about it? What does your gut tell you about it? And being able to know that maybe all three are in alignment, and that's the perfect sweet spot. Everything's in alignment and everything lines up. And so you're in a good place to make a decision that you trust and you feel good about. But sometimes one will be off, and you have to kind of decide, do I want to go with the logic? Do I want to go with my heart? Do I want to go with my gut? I will say my wife, she swiped, we met on a dating app, and she swiped left. I think 2 or 3 times before she swiped right on me. This is my wife. This is somebody who was like, my gut doesn't say yes, swipe left. I ain't got nothing invested on this dude in my heart, swipe left. My head still says swipe left. And then finally her gut said, let's just see. Swipe right.
See what's
and
up.
to think about how that one decision to trust her gut has built a life for us together.
Yeah.
And so that's why I say it's really hard to trust somebody else, to trust that somebody's making the right decisions, that somebody's moving in the right directions, that trust somebody's vision for your lives together. If you don't have trust in yourself. Like, I'm very sure about the decisions that I make, including the decision of who I married. So it's not just, oh, well, when I make a decision for us, I'm sure about the decision and we should use my decision. I'm also sure about who I married and who I've partnered with. So when I'm like in these situations where I'm like, I have to either give my wife the benefit of the doubt or give my wife some grace, or my wife has to give me grace.
Yep.
I'm trusting that I picked the right person. And I have to say that this is the first time that I've been in a relationship where I felt surety about picking the right person, because normally I'm people are like, oh, it must be so nice to be with you. No, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's not. Tell her to tell you. She's like, you said that? Yes, I said that.
I'd be like, wait, ho. Wrong answer, bro. Wrong answer.
The right answer if it's the truth. So, but but being in a relationship where it's like you trust that you made the right decision and you're not second guessing and wishy-washy on the decision, it just makes it to where trusting that person is a lot easier to do in the difficult situations that your relationship is naturally going to come across. So again, Bernie, I'm with you. It's a sign that there's more work that I need to do on me, because what I need to do is not trust the person. It's not about trusting the person. It's about
You,
trusting my judgment in the person or the partner that I've selected.
which is
And
100% true.
yeah,
Because when
and if it
oh
oh,
no,
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and if it tells you you need to leave, that if that's what your judgment is telling you, then be willing to trust your judgment. See, that's what
Yeah.
trusting yourself does, is it gives you surety in the decisions that you make. And it doesn't mean that things aren't going to be hard when you leave, or things aren't going to be hard when you stay, but you're trusting that you are making the best decision possible with all of the experiences that you had and all the information available to you at the time. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. And I was going to say that point is so very true, because when I had the challenge with trusting the person, it was definitely because I didn't trust myself. I didn't actually allow myself to have that space to deal with some things that still were not resolved. And sometimes I didn't realize that things were unresolved until certain situations came up, and I'm like, whoa, okay, wait, hold on.
Right.
So that is 100% true. Once you that, and that's why that healing piece is so very important. People are like, well, you got to be healed. Well, the thing about it is that there are layers to that. If you're not specific about the areas that you need to heal, for example, I knew trust was an issue with me, trusting me and trusting my judgment. I also knew too, me feeling comfortable in my own skin and not feeling as though I needed validation from who I was with. Specific things that you'd have to be able to, the ugly stuff where you look in the mirror and say, all right, this is the truth. Don't sound good for me to say it,
Right.
but this is the truth. So, healing, specifically being clear about what it is that you're healing, what it is that you need to go through. And then once you go through those things, I'm a firm believer, and you tend to see people the way you see yourself. And when I say that, if you're someone who tends to lie, then you tend to side out of the people because they probably lying too. You're the one who tend to steal and pick up stuff, then you're guarding your things to make sure no one's taking something from you. If you're someone who tends to be honest, you tend to see other people as honest. If you're someone who's trustworthy, you tend to see other people as trustworthy. So really, it does begin with us. So I think that's a very valid point, and I've experienced that personally. So yep.
So this kind of takes us back to that list
Mm.
on how it makes me question, I guess, how committed people are to doing the work
Cough.
to meet their own standards. Because that whole just, well, I'm not going to really bring much to the table, but this is what I want. This. It's like, well, it goes back to what you said. Why do you not possibly believe that you can't manifest these things for yourself, and that somebody has to bring that to you? And that's men or women. Like,
Yeah.
my mother made sure, one of the things she used to tell me when I was growing up, I am going to make sure that you do not need a woman in your life. That any woman you have in your life is because you want her
You
there,
want her.
not because you need her to iron for you, not because you need her to cook and to clean and do all these domestic things, because that's where the area my mom was coming out of, doing all these domestic things. I don't want you to have to pick somebody because they have a housekeeping resume. I want you to be able to pick
Right.
somebody because they align with you.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how grateful I am for that. And actually, my wife is probably grateful too, because I do a lot of the cooking. Um, but, but I'm grateful for that, because it opened up. And I think this is what the list does, is by creating these lists that are not really character level things, it condenses the availability of the market to you. Whereas my mother, what she did is she opened up the market. I could be with somebody who loved me and maybe not be the best cook, somebody who loved me and needed help with cleaning. Like, I could be with somebody who loved me. And that opens up this, when you say you don't have a type, that opens it up to where I don't have a type. I like what I like. And fortunately,
Mhm.
if there's things that I'm saying are deal breakers for me, they're more aligned with the character of the person
Yeah,
not the employment status, which can change from day to day.
absolutely. Absolutely. Which I think COVID showed a lot of people.
Woo!
Listen, some reality checking going on there. But I had a interview that I did. It's been a few weeks ago now. And Janaea D with Boss Conversations, she mentioned something that I think is a lot of people experience, and that is that back to that trust issue with yourself first. There are so many people, and as a coach, I see this a lot. There are so many people who have ideas of what they want for their life, and they're trying to attach themselves to someone to fill in gaps. And that's because, as Judea was saying, she went through a space where she thought that what she wanted to accomplish, that come up was going to be attached to something outside of herself, that it was going to be a connection that she made or something that she was a part of with someone else. She didn't see herself as being the catalyst for what it was that she wanted first. And so she went through some different things for some years in order for her to realize, she's supporting and helping other people to achieve great things in their life and within their businesses. And she's the person who's given all of this greatness to people. And then one day she just finally says, you know what? It's time for me to do this for myself and take a chance and find out what it's going to become. And taking that chance without having a clear vision, taking that chance without having complete clarity, taking that chance without having everything figured out. And so I think that that's something that is definitely important for this conversation, because I think a lot of the times people will want to attach themselves to things that they want in their life because they figure that A, they couldn't do it for themselves, and B, that someone else has things more figured out when they would. But then if you really talk about that and get deep into that conversation, they haven't really given themselves a fair shot. They haven't really had the courage or trust in themselves to take, and if you imagine yourself at a casino and you got a stack of chips, put them all on you and see what happens. A lot of the times people lack the courage to bet on themselves like that. They don't understand that clarity and vision sometimes comes from movement. Sometimes all you have is passion and a belief in something, in the fact that something could be. And when you
Right.
start to move, I think that passion, that thing in you that says, I think this could be, I think that that's a connection to who God created you to be. You just got to trust it. And so in movement, for every one step you take, he takes two. When you have that movement and you're moving, then all of a sudden now the gaps start to fill. Now you start to get vision you didn't have before. Now you start to have clarity. Now you start to be connected to other people who see that you're already moving, and now they want to support it because they love what it is that you're doing. My point is that we have to be more open to betting on ourselves and going about that journey to allow ourselves to develop along the process. And then I think a lot of people would amaze themselves as to what is possible if they had the courage to take those steps first. So it's been something that I've seen.
Absolutely. No, I agree. As I tell people all the time, look, if I'm gonna invest in anything, I'm gonna invest in me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I look
Mm-hmm.
at even just in the last quarter of last year, the number of investments that we invested in, um, and it's very interesting because you don't know this, hindsight's 2020, but you don't know
Sure.
this when you're forecasting what you want to do. But the investments that I even shifted, having money in certain stock, in certain companies' stock, and saying, you know what, I'm going to take that from here and move it into this investment over here.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because now I'm oh my gosh, we're almost half the year in already.
That
But now I'm
crazy.
almost half the year in, and I'm looking at those investments that I cashed out at certain thresholds and moved that money to either fund the book or do things that I need to do with First Row. And it's like, wow, the company stock went down and I could have stayed invested in them and
Mhm.
my value would still be a significant amount of money, but it would be lower than what it was when I pulled it out. And
Mhm.
so having that ability to say, look, I'm going to go ahead and bet on Billy this time,
Yep.
and taking that and now seeing the things that have come because of the fact that I've taken that money and bet on myself, it's like, well, wow, the value that in that company went down, but the things that I'm doing that are of value to me, that's growing.
Absolutely.
And because it's growing, it's like by the time I do get ready to pull the money that I invested out, it's going to be like, man, I'm so glad I took that chance to
Absolutely.
bet on myself and get the return that maybe wasn't the most comfortable, but it
Yeah.
was the most meaningful.
And that part. I think that there are different ways to think about things not working out the way we plan for them to. Words are so very powerful. And I think that we have to get out of the habit of things not working for us and labeling them as a failure,
Mhm.
labeling them as a mistake, labeling them that way. Because I honestly believe that naturally, no one likes taking a risk because of the possibility that you could lose, you know.
Right.
But I think that when we think about the refinement process that we all have to go through, each and every one of us are connected with on social media, somebody that we admire, somebody that we see as successful. There's the front end that you see of that, but there's the back end where that person took some hits. There were some things that they had to learn. There were some risks that had to be taken. If we stop looking at adversity and things that don't go the way that we planned as being negative instead of being a part of what's necessary to create the rung on the next ladder that we're climbing to the next level of our success. If we start looking at those things as necessary and saying, all right, I bet on me this time, crapped out. That didn't go according to plan. What is it that I'm meant to learn from that? Because everything serves a purpose. It really is all in how we see it. If it doesn't work the way that you plan and you look at it as, oh man, I lost, that's a negative, then that's going to make you pull back. But if instead of there being judgment and taking it as something negative, you look at it and take it as something that is necessary and positive, a missing piece to your puzzle of success. This was a lesson that you needed to learn. So instead of judgment, curious, become curious about it. Have that curiosity. All right, this did not go according to plan. All right. So
Right.
this I feel like is the direction that I need to be moving in, but what was I missing? And then take that and regroup instead of being fearful, becoming curious, and now becoming driven to get it right. I think that if we start looking at it as rungs to a ladder of our success and tools that we need to be able to acquire from this thing to put in our tool chest, if we start to look at things that way, then we'll start to forge forward. And then also too, when you have those things that don't work out, don't judge yourself and hide from it. Talk about it, because if you have people like the network, I feel so blessed. The network of people that I have that I'm connected to, if I do something and it blows up in my face, I could sit in the corner and sulk and judge myself. I can get on the phone and say, Billy, hey,
Right.
this is
Airing
what I
out.
was in, didn't work out. And if Billy doesn't know, the Billy has some people that he can call. We can all get together on the Zoom. Yo, who's done this before? Somebody needs to help a sister out because I took a hit. So when you have that curiosity about these things and you understand that everything, even the things that hurt, are meant for our greater good, then that's the type of level up that you want. Because then when you're leveling up from that place, then that's something that's going to be sustainable that you could build from. It doesn't write on or speak to the type of person you are, your intelligence, acumen. It's just an experience, people. So I would say just we got to give ourselves grace and we got to stay in it, and understand that it's all meant to work for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, really quick. Key put something in the chat. It says some fail to realize they attract who they are and like-minded individuals. So why not improve yourself to improve what and or who is attracted to you?
Come on
And
now.
and B Gates says that part, Key. Absolutely.
Yep.
That is what's happening. Is one thing about the stop calling things failures, stop calling things mistakes. In the book, I talk about having this a story that somebody had shared on a show I was watching, or an interview that I was watching, about how he teaches his children to have a no retreat mentality.
Mm.
um, and it's in the moment of fight or flight. It's in those moments where we feel like maybe we have made a mistake, where we feel like we're experiencing failure, that we are truly faced with that question. Are we going to fight and get to the other side, or are we going to flight and run in the other direction? And so if we can become more disciplined about that fight or flight response, not even just in the physical world, but in the mental space when it's just us and our thoughts, I think we can be a little more successful about accepting the lessons. I think we talked about this where you had said take the L, and I've always said that's the loss. And in that conversation you and I were having, I said this is the first time that I've ever said take the lesson.
That's right.
Like, why the heck am I going to waste time taking the loss because, this is, I took that loss on the chin? No, I took those lessons with me, because other than that, the loss is just taking something that is going to come again because I didn't learn the lessons that I needed to learn from the loss.
Absolutely.
And so I think about that. And then who you attract to you when we are open. And I've had this conversation. I actually just had this conversation today about how when we're in this space where we feel overwhelmed, where we maybe feel like we made a mistake, we feel like we failed, our instinct is to cover up and protect. I don't want the world to see me. I don't want to be exposed to the world because I feel like I haven't made the best decision. But when we open up, just like you said, it gives you the opportunity to tap into your network. You don't know what solutions are out there.
Absolutely.
Have already been written, stamped, packaged, and ready to go to you. You don't know what's out there until you take that time to open up. It's almost like being in a house where you've been frying something and there's smoke everywhere. At some point, if you want that smoke to leave your house, you got to open the doors and the windows.
Yep. There's nothing new under the sun. I don't care what type of hit you've taken. Somebody has taken it before. Some people have taken it and they considered it a loss, and other people have taken it and considered it a lesson. It's so important. That's one of the things that I've learned, and I thank goodness early on, that transparency piece is so very important. It's so very important because it allows us to forgive ourselves and move forward. We should always forge forward, and when we talk about these insatiable appetites and some of the different ways, or at least we talked about in this episode, that we can put ourselves in different boxes, like JC talked about, romanticizing things instead of creating what it is that we want, allowing ourselves to, I don't care what the situation is, to speak life, to speak lessons as opposed to losses. There's so many different layers to us and a lot of the people that we connect with. And as Keith said, what we draw to us, all of these things are so very important. And I think staying connected to the reality of what is instead of the fantasy of what could be going to help us a whole lot more in these situations. So, yeah.
One thing I'll add to the latter is being vulnerable will help us get to the next step in the ladder. However, when we're not vulnerable, we're actually making ourselves vulnerable. Because if you're on that ladder and you're choosing, I'm not going to share any of this and I'm going to do it on my own, that's all great and dandy until somebody comes along on the bottom of that ladder and kicks it from under you.
Absolutely.
And all the baggage comes spilling out anyway.
You have vulnerability on your terms.
Yeah.
Or allow vulnerability to set the terms for you. Yeah, no.
Exactly.
Like, I'm good on that piece.
I do not need that in my life.
I don't need vulnerability to set it up for me. No.
Yeah, no, that's not that. I'm not trying to get dunked on like that.
All right.
Really quick. Keith says instead, this is a continuation about what and who is attracted to you. Instead, some have this fantasy to improve their status or their life by trying to find someone who fits their superficial list to compensate for something they're not willing to do for themselves.
Come on now. That's a whole conversation. That's
a
whole episode.
Why ain't you up on here on the stage, bro? We sent the link.
That's a whole entire episode right there.
Cool. Well, we are coming at time. Man, I love these conversations. I swear this hour just boom. I feel like we start off, we be laughing, we laugh all the way through, and then it's like, we got 60 seconds before we're at an hour. I guess I better start making the move. So
all right.
I will let you sign us out. But man, thank you guys for tuning in live. It's been awesome. I love these conversations. It's a part of Tuesday that I look forward to. So, final thoughts for you, Taralyn. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, none really. Just open up, put yourself out there. We can't take ourselves too seriously. Listen, we have legacies on the line. We don't have time to sit on the sidelines. Step out, enjoy yourself, get out of the box, have some fun. Life is to be lived. That's it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think the only thing I would leave with is again, actionable potential. If they
Yeah.
versus having a list, all you got to do is sit and watch, and you will find out. Soto says he wants the show to
It's
be
going to be
longer.
longer.
But if you sit, you watch, people will show you exactly who they are,
Yep.
and exactly who they aren't. So rather than trying to fit somebody into a list, just find out if what they have to offer, what they bring to the table, how they gonna add to you. Find out if that's what you want added to your life, and if it's not, deuces, keep kick push. That's all I got.
Absolutely. Check the deuces. Well, we want to thank you guys as always for joining us on for these Tuesday shows. But guess what? If you don't have anything going on tomorrow, even if you do, you might want to include first row in that. It's the Wednesday word tomorrow's going to be at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Ooh, the Phoenix. Ooh, Billy. I didn't know
Yeah,
about that. Well,
I know.
I guess I'm gonna learn tomorrow.
It's going down. It's going down tomorrow.
Is going down tomorrow. Also, hey, you definitely have to fire your job, hire your passion. You could do that by checking out Billy's new book, national bestseller, first time out the gate. You could do that at firstrow.com. And guess what, you guys? You can get that first download, the download of the first chapter, excuse me. You can get that free. I guarantee you, once you check it out, you are going to want the rest of the book. Has a journal to go with it. It is so awesome. So make sure you check that out. Also, too, you can check me out, Taralyn Michelle at The Grind Defined, www.thegrinddefined.com. Fresh episodes every Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And also, you can find out everything that's going on with me, a professional coach, author at taralynmichelle.com. You guys can check that out. In the meantime and between time, go about the rest of your week owning it because God created nothing but greatness for you. Until next time, Taralyn Michelle and Billy Wroe here. Peace and abundant blessings. See you next Tuesday.
Peace.